some more Creative Sim here on the channel. This group of Creative Sims is me trying to recreate my D&D creations into the Sims world. And today we have Taymin here, who is a Yuan-ti. The Yuan-tis have the main one that they list as like a race is the Yuan-ti pureblood, which can I say that they confuse the heck out of me. The fact that they are called pureblood and Yuan-ti are supposed to be associated with snakes. They're supposed to be like snake people, basically. Well, the purebloods, in all honesty, if they had their arms crossed, because I think if I remember correctly, their nails are really long, like that would be something that would give them away. But even then, like for the most part, their hands look pretty normal other than having long, sharp nails, which, you know, with races like tieflings and stuff like that in there, they could easily look like those type of hands anyway, or someone who just really decides to have long pointed nails. But yeah, like if you've seen them from the back, from like what I have seen and my understanding of them, they look almost like a human. Like you wouldn't know until you've seen their face, because their face is slightly slender and they have the snake eyes and stuff like that. And I think technically their skin can have this weird appearance to it. But from what I have seen and what I understand, like, it's not something you could easily tell until, like, you're up close to them and, like, face to face to them. Otherwise, you don't really get the snaky vibes as much as you think you should with something called a pureblood, because apparently the way they're described, they are supposed to be the closest to, like, snake creature things. So it makes no sense to me. So my Yuan-ti, I guess, like, I know there is other forms of Yuan-ti, I forget the names of them. I just wrote Yuan-ti just on mine, just because I wasn't 100% sure which one he fell under. He's definitely not a pureblood because he has a snake tail, which to me, the ones that have snake tails should be closer to being a pureblood than the ones who have two legs, walk around, and look just like humans for the most part. So that is a little confusing to me, but Taymin here has a snake tail, so he's not a pureblood. And technically, the last name I gave him in Sims is his name before he left his people, which is Tetsui. So that is his actual, like, normal, like, native name, but he does leave his people, and he changes his name so that they hopefully don't find him quite as easily, basically. He is a wizard, and his subclass is School of Transmutation, so that is, like, his specialty of wizardry. He is quite, a shy, cowardly fellow, I'm going to be honest with you. So, with his backstory, if you watch the previous videos, you know that the previous 3 plus this one and the next one, they sort of travel around together now, like in my story-wise. Obviously, if I ever did play any of them in a D&D campaign as a player, obviously I would come up with a reason why they wasn't with the rest of the group, but I'd still want it to be acknowledged that they did have these 4 as friends. But yeah, so this is the 4th member of the group. Basically, he is actually a prince from where he came from, but he's always like, he had an air of confidence to him when he was back at his own people, but he still was constantly, like, wanting people to absolutely adore him, and, like, he wanted to become the king for sure. Like, he didn't want a chance for any of his siblings to take the crown, so he really wanted his people to absolutely love him. And he just has a very bad habit of just constantly lying to try to get people to like him. He's not so bad at it anymore because of the fact of things that happened as time went on, but he still lies from time to time. That's just how he is, especially if it can get him out of danger. Oh yeah, you bet he's gonna try to lie. But yeah, so anything he thought that would make them like him better, he would say that about himself, or say that he's went through that or something, trying to relate to them, even though he's royalty, and some of them were a far stretch. Eventually, his people started catching on, and a lot of them wasn't very happy about it, especially when it came to some lies. Some lies that he told affected people way more than just some of the little lies. So eventually, he became very disliked by his people, and definitely they didn't want him becoming the next leader. And he basically was, like, pushed out of his, like, little well, I wouldn't say little, it's not little, like village, whatever you want to call it, city, I don't know if it's a city, maybe a city, maybe it's big enough to be a city. I haven't fully fleshed out that much of the details, but I imagine it's at least decently sized. But, so, he went on the run to try to get away from those people, and he knows that if any of his people ever travel outside of the city, village, whatever you want to call it, they probably would not be so happy to see him, because, like I said, there were some lies that were just, they pushed the boundaries way too much. They did more harm than just a simple little lie. So, yeah, there's certain people in his, community that definitely really did not like him and would have preferred him to really not be an issue anymore and not be in a potential area where he would even be able to come back. So if something was to happen to his siblings, then obviously he would automatically be the one who would have to take the crown. So they don't really want that to be a situation. They don't want it to ever be to where it could be him. So, yeah, he's a little cowardly, he's a little paranoid, very worried that he's gonna run into people, but he's had this high lifestyle, so he's sort of used to it as well. So traveling around is, rough for him, but, he's trying. And when he runs into Drex and Shamira and Amara, they could tell that he is not used to this, that he is definitely in a rough space at this point, because he does not know what to do, how to survive, nothing. And I partially imagine that there's probably, some random, bandits trying to rob stuff from him. I just pictured it, that story in my head. Is they were trying to rob him when the three came across, and they helped him, because cowardly Taymin here would probably definitely seem more of he was the victim type. So they took him along with them as long as, he wanted to, and he definitely did. He seen a big giant girl carry, well, not a big giant girl, a small tiny girl technically, but she had a big giant sword. That's where I was trying to go at. Someone with a big giant sword, this crazy girl who was willing to basically do anything, and a big muscly dragonborn. Yeah, he's gonna travel with him. That seems more they're willing to let him go with him. That seems like a much safer option. And he tends to try to hide in the group where he would least likely get attacked. Wherever that point is, that's where he will be. And I honestly imagine that he potentially has, a pretty deep voice most situations. I feel like he has this deep voice that the S's are very pronounced, the snake thing and the hissing or whatever. But, so I'd imagine his S's are very pronounced and they sort of roll and stuff like that, but he still has a deep voice until he becomes chickenly or a coward, and then all of a sudden, the most girlish scream comes out of this man. That is how I picture him. And actually, when I was taking pictures, I don't even know what it was. I don't know if it was trying to storm when I was taking the screenshots, or if it's because he has the paranoid trait. I don't remember what it was, but as soon as I put them in a lot to try to take pictures of him, the Sims game immediately made him be scared, and I'm like, I'm glad you know what I'm going for here, Sims, because that's perfect. That's exactly what I need him to be. So yeah, his main goal basically is just to survive. That is literally, his main thing. I want to live. He does not want to die young. That's a fear of his. He's got several fears, but that is one of them. To die young. He does not want for that to happen at all. So he will try to do anything and everything to try to keep himself protected. Sometimes his group mates probably shake their heads at him for how he acts sometimes. But you know what? They're he's an outcast. He's disliked by his people. They didn't try to give him a chance to understand why he did the things he did. Yeah, it's not saying it's great and, it's 100% forgivable or relatable, but sometimes things like emotions and things like wanting to be liked are such a strong thing that maybe you should really understand why they were acting that way before you just automatically jump to that. But that's just how this group feels, because they end up all sort of became outcasts in their way through different variations, so they were like, yeah, you'll be one of us now. Now, as far as the sim version of Taymin, obviously I do have the snake tails. I actually had snake tails from when I did the Sims 4 occult discussions, and I was actually talking about gorgons or, like, snake-like people, basically Yantis as well, like, you know, that sort of vibe, if for some reason they ever got into Sims somehow, which they're definitely one of the far-stretched ones, which I did several far-stretched ones, like fairies, werewolves, those things. They're not far-stretched. They've already been in The Sims once. And genies, they've already been in The Sims in previous iterations. But the things like the dragon people and the snake people and, can't remember a lot of them right now, but, you know, fawns and, I can't say the satyr, whatever. You know, those ones are a little far-stretched for ever coming to the game, I believe. I mean, I feel like if they did maybe like a fantasy expansion pack where they included more than one occult, maybe some of those would have a chance. But otherwise, I doubt it. And at this point, the way they've been doing Sims 4, a lot of the occults that come in expansion packs sort of, or whatever, they don't get as much love as if they're in a game pack. So I really wouldn't want them to do that anyway, so... But back to Taymin here. So, with his, like, sim stuff, now... If you've been watching this and then the mansion build that I've been doing, you know that I eventually plan on putting these Sims all into that big giant mansion that I'm building alongside this series, and then basically just doing reality TV show and see what happens when I put them in there. It's going to be like a little mini series, just because I know that there's so many different personalities in my head, especially, like, all these characters have, like, so many different personalities and stuff like that, and I want to see how that will be translated in Sims. I'm just very curious. I'm basically experimenting here. I will be using some mods to try to help add some stuff. Obviously, I have MCC. I've put Wonderful Whims back in, so that's going to be playing a part. I have a chemistry thing in. Now, by the time I do the mini-series, I don't know if there's going to be any updates. Most likely there will be an update that comes out before I get to the mini-series with the way that they've been doing updates. Because there's been at least one update every single month lately, so most likely right before I do the mini-series, there will probably be an update, so I'll definitely have to make sure to get all the mods updated. But those are mods that I'm planning on keeping in. Slice of Life also in there. And I'm also wanting to have a mod that allows me to give them 5 traits instead of just the 3. So I'm hoping all this stuff gives them, like, different personalities and, like, a broad range, and then seeing how they all are once they're put into this house and how they all interact. As for Taymin, I did give him the leader of a pack aspiration. Now, I'm not really going to be controlling these Sims too often, except for in, like, rare instances, like when I want them to travel or something like that. I want to see if maybe in any way they will do anything on their aspirations. Now, I do think there has to be a group, which I probably will actually make clubs, and those clubs will probably just be their friends. I'll see how that goes when there's multiple clubs in a house, if it tries to make them be in a constant get-together all at the same time. I don't know how that works, so I might experiment that before I do the miniseries, just to see how that works, unless someone can tell me down below if you can have multiple... If you have multiple clubs and every Sim lives in the same house for both clubs, like, does it constantly try to make them in a gathering, or what? But yeah, so he is the leader of the pack. That is just because, you know, he was wanting to become the leader of his people. That's why he ended up lying all the time, was to get people to like him more, so that he would most likely get the crown, 100% sure. Obviously, it backfired on him. But he also has the snob, lazy, proper, paranoid, and squeamish trait. Now, the paranoid probably is very obvious with me, wanting him to be cowardly, to be very afraid all the time. Paranoid was definitely the closest I could get to getting that, and since he also doesn't really want to be seen by his people, that definitely very fits. He could be paranoid about running into them. He doesn't want to see them. They might try to get him. No, thank you. And then as for the other 4 traits, honestly, the other 4 traits all have a tie-in, being the fact that he is from royalty. Now, not all royalty or, like, high-up people are snobby, lazy, proper or even squeamish, but that is the traits that I want to give him to represent that. Because I actually have a few characters that have royalty backgrounds. Vaya is technically a princess. She is very much different from him. She is not really lazy, she's not really squeamish, like she can go out and do stuff, like she's not gonna be grossed out by things necessarily, and she doesn't really act like a snob. I could see her being proper, and I may even gave her proper. I think I did give her proper, actually. Just being raised in that royalty setting. But for him, he is lazy, snobby, and squeamish, along with being proper. So, he is definitely an interesting character. He will definitely be one of the ones that I feel like will act quite differently from most of the other ones, and it'd probably be pretty funny to watch. So I'm looking forward to seeing how that goes. I hope you enjoyed this video and like how Taymin turned out and enjoyed his story, and are looking forward to seeing him in the household. Let me know who is your favorite character look-wise so far, and then which character are you most excited to see them get mixed into the house? Like, which one do you think is going to be the funnest to watch? So far, we are on the 14th character. I actually forgot. There's like 30 some that are going to be going into this house. I think, if I did it's either like late 20s, early 30s numbers. It's somewhere around in there, but I think it's like 32, 34 Sims going into this house. I'm using MCC to let me do that. But yeah, so we still have quite a few more to go. It won't take too long at this point. Let me know all those thoughts down in the comments below. Hit that lovely like button if you enjoyed. Make sure you subscribe so you see the future peoples and eventually see them all go into the mansion together and see what chaos ensues when they're all in there together. But I would be ending this video now, so bye bye until next time.